The clashes, as you know, started with the kidnapping of 2 Israeli soldiers. I remind you, the week before that, or 10 days before that, we had another kidnapping of an Israeli soldier by Hamas. And we're going to go back to the relationship between Gaza and Lebanon in a second. But do you remember that Nasrallah is the arch propagandist? I remind you that the 2 most dramatic attacks, 1, the first night of bombs landing in Haifa, and 2, the attack on an Israeli naval boat, both took place at 10 to 8 at night. Is not by coincidence, because at 8 o'clock we were having the news. Now we're on 24 hours news all the time. Nasrallah was or is the arch psychological warfare expert. He got on Israeli television or international television, CNN was covering it everywhere else, picks up the phone and says, if Israel wants a war, you're going to have a war. And the surprise is coming in 2 minutes and a boat is attacked. That boat was a surprise for our intelligence. We had no idea of what he said. I want to actually read to you the quote from some of his speech. Because if you listen carefully to what he says, it reveals a lot about his thinking. He says, today the Arab and Islamic nation is facing a historic opportunity to unite, to release themselves of the plan of disintegration, sectarianism and civil wars to which America is pushing the peoples of the region. Within his speech, he's talking to America, that America is pushing this region to a conflict. Today, the peoples of the Arab world and Islamic nations are facing a historic opportunity to accomplish a historic victory over the Zionist enemy. The question is not who imposes the conditions on whom. Today we have a great opportunity of this kind. I'm not exaggerating. In 2000, we in Lebanon, with modest capabilities and efforts, and with a small number of mujahideen, with a few supplies and little equipment, presented a model of how resistance can overcome an occupation army. And that is the problem. Up until this point, the war has not yet begun. What do I mean? Yes, over 1,600 rockets have been fired at Israel. Yes, the Israeli Air Force continues to target infrastructure and Hezbollah in Lebanon. But the war hasn't yet begun. Why? Because the number one question facing Israel is, can Israel win the war by air and air alone? There's only one precedent, and that precedent is Sarajevo, which saw a major Air Force battle. In other words, will the army be forced in? I remind you, Israel left Lebanon. Israel left Lebanon after being entrenched, being sunk into the mud of Lebanon itself. The question facing the army as we speak now is, will we be able to get rid of Hezbollah without using ground troops? One of the things which is interesting is that Israel set a very high standard for leaving Lebanon. They said the release of the soldiers and the defeat of Hezbollah. My question is, will Israel be able to defeat Hezbollah without sending in without ground troops? According to international law, and I know many of you are facing answers or questions about Israel's role, Israel is, by international law, allowed to carry out its action. It is said that it holds the Lebanese government responsible for Hezbollah's action. And according to all international law, the kidnapping of soldiers, the missile attacks before those kidnappings, were, for all intents and purposes, a declaration of war by a sovereign country on a sovereign country themselves. Israel is demanding that Lebanon keep to Resolution 1558, which calls, and is not the call of Israel, is a call of the international community to dismantle Hezbollah. The question is this, and this is where we have to look, and this is why I said the war hasn't yet started. Demolition is easy. State building is more difficult. Look at the Iraqi example and the American problems in Iraq. Bringing down Saddam Hussein was the easy bit. What happens afterwards? There's a basic rule of physics which is very important, which is a vacuum is never left empty. Something always fills that hole. We've been here before. We got rid of the PLO. We got rid of Yasser Arafat. Arafat went to Tunisia, and Hezbollah filled his place. What we have to be clear of is one thing: that Hezbollah isn't replaced by something more radical and more extreme, or it doesn't disperse itself out of Lebanon or throughout Lebanon, and is going to be even more difficult to attack. Bottom line: will Israel be able to meet the conditions it set for itself?